Hey everyone, welcome to Bold Reflections. Today I have to talk about this clip from the What is a Woman documentary. It is exactly the reason that I will never, ever, ever, ever get behind the transgender movement. I don't care how many rainbows show up in how many places. I don't care about any of it. Because this right here is the truth of the transgender movement. There's a lot of dark truths of the transgender movement, but this is one that very few people talk about, and I wonder why. All right, just fair warning, there are some very graphic things that get brought up, very dark subjects. So if that's not your thing, just skip through. But I really think that everybody should know about this.
It's unspeakable what these people have done to our children.
When did that start? When was it decided that we need to start teaching kids about this stuff at such a young age?
So I'll answer that with one word: Kinsey. Kinsey was a social reformer. He wanted to rid society of Judeo-Christian values when it came to sexuality. And he worked very hard to do that, and I would say he succeeded.
Kinsey would be very happy with our culture today. His idea was that children are sexual from birth, that we're all inherently sexual creatures from cradle to grave. He believed that true happiness is found in a life of perverse sexual experimentation, no matter the age.
What came out is that his research was fraudulent.
Kinsey based his fraudulent conclusions on data he collected from convicted sex offenders and child molesters. His research was conducted in prisons, not everyday America. He also performed horrific sexual experiments on children, some under the age of 1. His most influential book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, contains an infamous chart called Table 34, which documents the orgasms of very young kids, including babies as young as 5 months old. But instead of suffering the consequences for his heinous actions, he was and still is celebrated by academia and Hollywood. His ideas form the foundation for sexual education in public schools today. How do we get from this to you can choose your own gender?
Okay, well, now we have another very important character, and his name was John Money.
John Money was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Gender ideology was his brainchild. In fact, he coined the terms gender identity and gender roles. And according to Money, babies are gender neutral at birth. And ultimately, environment determines whether a person is a man or a woman.
Money was telling the world about his theory that a boy could be raised as a girl and do just fine, and vice versa.
And so Money tried out his theory on 2 young twin boys, the Reimer twins.
When the twins were 8 months old and they went to be circumcised, the first twin, whose name was Bruce, something went wrong with the machinery and his penis was burnt off. They stopped and didn't do a second circumcision on the other twin, as you might imagine. And the parents, of course, didn't know what to do. How are they going to raise this child?
John Money convinced Bruce's parents to transition him into a girl. Money also conducted sexually abusive experiments on the twins throughout their childhood, including forcing them to simulate sex acts on each other.
He reported up to the age of 10 that this was a complete success. Well, it wasn't true.
The results were a disaster. Bruce could never fully accept his female identity. Eventually, his parents told him the truth, and he chose to transition back to a boy, taking the name David. As an adult, David spoke out about the abuse and the damage done to him by John Money.
The girls would do their things with their Barbies and things like that, and that wouldn't interest me. And things such as trucks and building forts and getting to the odd fist fight and climbing trees. That's the kind of stuff that I like, but it was unacceptable, so I'd never...
As a girl?
As a girl, I had no place to fit in.
The trauma that he and his brother and his entire family went through left deep scars. His brother died of an overdose when he was 38, and then David committed suicide.
There was never a retraction or an apology from John Money. Instead, his ideas were adopted by mainstream psychology, and they form the basis of gender ideology today. Why don't more people know about John Money and Alfred Kinsey?
Evidently, there are forces that don't want this information out.
So you saw that. Remember this when you see the pride flag. Remember when you see a teacher with a little pride flag in the corner who's okay with transitioning your child behind your back. Remember this when you see the president coming out and supporting the pride movement, the transgender movement. Remember the fact that there are perverts behind this movement, and they do not want you to know about it. So while they stick the rainbow in your face, they're telling you to look away from the truth. Don't do it. Now, on to some lighter news, because I think it's important to balance these things out. I got a gray hair yesterday, or at least I saw my first gray hair. I did pull it out, which is, there's an old wives' tale that if you pull out your gray hairs, 10 more come back to replace it. So probably you will notice it soon. And I'm trying to decide if I am going to be sad about it or not. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm not sad about it. Although it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good. But I think it's because we live in a world where young is exalted and old is not. It's something you want to avoid, especially as a woman. But as per usual, the Bible runs countercultural. So I'm going to reframe this whole thing. For proper context, I'm turning 32 in a few months, which I know is not old, okay? I get it. But I'm not young anymore. At least not like young adult, all right? I can either be all like sad panda about it, be like, oh, getting older, or I could be like, hey, especially if you watch my testimony video, you'll kind of understand a little bit more where I'm coming from. But I got to live another year, another 2 years, and then another 3 years. And if I make it to 40, another 10 years. How awesome is that? So it's all about reframing. If you're interested, you can watch my testimony video in the link in the description. So just if you're curious. All right. So on the topic of reframing, I love that there's so many Christians coming out and saying Happy Noahic Covenant Month instead of Pride Month, which is really great. It's awesome to see that we're so fed up with Pride Month, with June and all of its depravity, and we're rebranding it. And I'm here for it. I'm all the way here for it. Don't let up. So much like I am reframing my view on the gray hair and seeing it as Proverbs sees it, it's a crown of glory. It shows your wisdom. So we too are reframing Pride Month, and I'm all about it. All right, guys. I know this was a short one, relatively short, but my kids are awake, so I'm going to go. All right, and that is all I have for you guys today. And as always, God bless.